Well, hello and welcome back to the Producer Joe Show. It is me, Producer Joe. So, how you doing? I hope you caught last week's episode. We had the incredible Ken Kramer on, and he was just incredible as he always is. We are very fortunate to have Ken in this town, and if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube page. It is right here. It's at SD Radio Joe. Please subscribe to that. Really appreciate it. The subscribers have been increasing by the week, and that's fantastic. And I appreciate you. So today's guest here, we have one of the best sports talk show hosts I have ever heard in San Diego, and I have lived here my whole life. He is one of my favorites. He is one of my favorite people, and just one of the nicest guys you can meet. So I will bring him on right now. Here we go with the coach, John Kentera.
Joe, how you doing today? Thanks for having me.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time for me here.
Hey, I really appreciate you asking me. And boy, you mentioned Ken Kramer. How many hours of TV joy has he brought us San Diegans over the years? A really class act. And, I've had the opportunity from time to time at different radio and TV functions to visit with Ken, and just a real joy and a tremendous talent.
He's a delight. And like it was mentioned on the show, I've lived here my whole life, but still, when I watch a show, I learn something new. And it could just be a street name like Espola up in Poway. It means
Right.
Escondido, Poway, and Lakeside. And there's other things like Nobel Drive. There's a backwards name. I don't remember what it was, Laban or something like that. But he's just full of information, and his approach and his delivery are top notch.
Amen. I would agree with that. You mentioned Nobel Drive there in La Jolla. That's when Mr. Lynch got 1090 going. That's the street you'd turn on to get to the original 1090.
Saw John Lynch a few weeks ago at a radio reunion up in Claremont, I believe it was, at Felipe's Pizza up there. Finally got a chance to shake his hand. Very nice man.
Well, he's the guy that got me into this crazy business back in 1987.
It's crazy. It's yeah, we were talking a little bit about the history of 1090, 690 and everything, and I'm like, boy, I remember listening to it back in the day when it was Hacksaw that was on there and the like, and you had Dr. Joe Sobel on there he was a meteorologist, and I don't know why that sticks in my head. I just have this Rain Man for radio, Rain Man brain for radio, but it was a fun conversation, and y'all are to thank for bringing me all those great memories.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, John Lynch had a definite vision. And in 1990, 690 started, and along with WFAN in New York, the two most successful sports talk radio stations in the history of America. You'd have to throw in WIP in Philadelphia now as well, but WFAN and 690 out on the West Coast, the two biggest torches are around. And we had some characters that I worked with over the years, I can tell you that.
Sure. It was a great time, and you guys did it. I mean, you brought it every day, all day long, and nothing better. I learned so much about sports and radio back then. But anyways, so John Kentera, when did the John Kentera era begin? Are you also a native San Diegan?
Born and raised here, Joe. Born in the Old Scripps Hospital in La Jolla, raised in Solana Beach, and still reside in Solana Beach. Spent a little time down in Texas when I was coaching baseball at Texas Tech in the mid 80s before I came back and got into radio. But now born and raised in San Diego, and love this town. I love all the sports teams. I don't know why I love sports so much, but it's been like that. I grew up in a family of a father that played college football. He was also a professional boxer. My brother was a great athlete, played football, wrestled, baseball, track, played college football, and my mom was just a great Midwestern lady that did a great job of raising us along with my dad.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. What? No better town to grow up in.
No, we're very fortunate, Joe. I think, we all have our trials and tribulations and our struggles here and there, but there's a reason they call it America's finest city, and I'll second that motion.
Yeah, and that's a moniker that's kind of gone away, but you know what? I'm still going to call it that. Even though I've never lived anywhere else, I'm still going to call it America's finest city. I mean, the radio people can attest to that. The people who have come to town, I've had hosts of other stations come to me and say, "Hey, even if we get cut loose, we're not leaving San Diego. We'll go and flip burgers somewhere. We are going to stay in this town," and that's fantastic. I love to hear that about my town.
There's no question about it. I mean, you get here, one thing about living in San Diego, you have a lot of friends from out of town that want to come visit you, and you don't have to spend a lot of money going the other way.
Right? Nope, you're right. So, when you were younger, what sports were you involved in? You're a big basketball person, right?
Yeah, I was one of those guys, Joe, that whatever season came along, I was going to play. I was always a big kid, so I wasn't able to play Pop Warner football. I'd play flag football, I'd play youth league basketball, I'd play little league, and then when I got to high school, I played football. I didn't play my senior year. I'd had some knee surgery, but I was a really good basketball and baseball player. Um, I had a couple of great years in basketball at Torrey Pines. We didn't win a lot of games. It was a brand new high school. The first year I played varsity basketball, we had no seniors because it was a new high school. But I had 2 good years basketball. I was an all-CIF baseball player my senior year. And, I went to Maricosta Community College up in Oceanside, had played basketball and baseball there, and went really well. Actually, Joe, my sophomore year, I was named the athlete of the year in the college and got a basketball scholarship to USIU, which is now Alliant University, and went there and was doing pretty good. But I ended up hurting my knee, and I finished the year, but I couldn't play baseball. And that was in 1979. And all of a sudden, I got into coaching that spring with Craig Scoggins up at Torrey Pines and kind of got my coaching career going.
Now, before we get into your coaching career here, you mentioned Torrey Pines, and I did see this on your Facebook page the other day. That's that's pretty great right there.
Yeah, that it was really cool. They've been working on something like that for a while. And I went to the basketball game about a week and a half ago. And when they saw me walk in the gym, a couple of the assistant coaches that went to Torrey, they saw me, and Coach Olive, who's been up there for years and done a great job with that program. They all made sure to come up and tell me, "Hey, you got to come into our new locker room after the game. We got to show you something." And so after the game, I was with a couple of other people, and we walked down and went into the locker room. And Coach Olive introduced me to the team, and they'd won that night, so everybody was in a good mood. And he pointed to the board and goes, "Gentlemen, see that first name on the board? Well, here's the man right here." And he introduced me to the team. And a lot of the guys knew me from radio, and they came up and individually introduced themselves after the team kind of broke up and they got done with their team meeting and that. But that was a great honor, not only to be on that board, but to be the first player in Torrey Pines history, because it's had a great basketball history to get a college scholarship. And boy, I'll tell you what, you look at the three names underneath me. Don Capner went to USD, great player. Bobby Capner had a great career at BYU. And if you can see that class of '83, Chris Dudley went to Yale, and he played many, many years in the NBA. So that's a pretty good list on that side of the board.
Not sure why it says C related on there. I didn't catch that. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Chris Dudley's right underneath Bobby Capner, and I think a lot of people remember Chris Dudley.
That's pretty great. That's fantastic. So touching on your coaching career, I can tell you from my own experience, and I was nowhere near the tenure or quality of coach that you were, but I know that I did coach my son and his teams for every year from T-ball up until high school. And it was one of the most rewarding things that I ever did. And it was more than just teaching the game of baseball. It was life. I had kids on there who were told they could never play the game, and they ended up being something. And there was also personal issues with kids, and I felt like I took them under my wing, and it was really one of the most rewarding things in my life. Is basically the point that I'm getting at.
Well, Joe, I'm going to tell you, I had a great success in the radio. I think everybody say I had a fantastic career. I'll let people judge that. But I will tell you this. I feel my strength in this world. God put me on this planet to work with young people and to coach. And I flat out love coaching from day one. Even before 1979, when I started coaching baseball at Torrey Pines High School, I coached Little League when I was a senior in high school. I coached girls fast pitch softball, young ladies, teaching them how to field a ground ball or swing the bat. I was very, very blessed in my coaching career. I had so many great, talented athletes, and even the ones. Here's how I approached it, especially in high school, Joe, because I coached in high school, I coached in junior college, and I coached in the old Southwest Conference. I had the opportunity to coach against some great coaches from, Coach Gustafson at Texas, or Norm DeBryan at Arkansas, or Gary Ward at Oklahoma State. I coached against some of the best baseball coaches in America, okay? But I'm going to tell you, it's the same at every level. The game just speeds up a little bit, okay?
Sure.
But the way I approached it from day one is I wanted my players at Torrey Pines High School, I wanted them to learn the game the right way, how to turn the double play the right way, how to do cutoffs the right way, how to do pickoffs, run down. I wanted them to be so good at that because I knew we were going to win our fair share of games. I didn't worry about winning. It was all about the process and putting in the time. And I wanted the game to become a little bit easier. I wanted practice to be tough. I wanted our guys in condition. But the thing that I wanted most is not everybody's going to go on and play in college. I understand that. But we had our fair share. And we had some guys that played at a very, very high level. But if Joe Nelson is playing for me, I want Joe, if he's going to go to Grossmont College or Point Loma Nazarene, wherever Joe's going to go, if he's going to play, I want him to go in and be able to compete with the other freshmen that are coming into that program on that given year. I didn't want you going in behind somebody because the coach you had prior to where you were at didn't teach you the right way to play the game. That's number one. Number two, not everybody's going to play past high school, and I get that too. But if Joe Nelson decides to, go to Grossmont College and on to San Diego State, and he gets his degree in engineering or business, and he's out there making money in the work world, that's great. But when little Joe comes along, or little Josephine comes along, and he wants to sign up and be a little league coach or a pony league coach or a girls softball coach, I want you to know how to teach kids to throw, field, and swing the bat. I wanted you to be able to impart the strengths that we taught you in high school, or if you played for me in junior college, that you could be the best little league coach out there or the best softball coach out there. Because when people get better, Joe, it's like people that take golf lessons, okay? And I'm only good at golf when I'm hitting through a wagon wheel or a clown's mouth, okay? But why do people take golf lessons? Because they get better. And when they get better, they want to do that more, right? Well, it's the same thing whether it's in baseball or basketball or any sport. Is you're getting better, you want to do it more. And when you do it more and you do it with passion, you're going to continue to grow. And that's the way I approach coaching.
Yeah, I was always reminded of that Tom Amansky VHS video back in the day where, set, back, throw, we had a lot of good, what's the word? Teachers. I was looking for a better word.
Yeah, they wanted to teach, make you fundamentally sound.
And then we pass that along to our generation, our
Well,
next
that's what I was trying
generation.
to tell you right there.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
way I coached. I wanted everybody, I wanted all the players that played for me to be better prepared when they moved on to
Yep.
whatever level they were going to move on. I didn't want them to be playing from behind the eight ball because their coach didn't do the job at the lower level.
Sure, sure. I get that, and I've seen that. So moving on to radio, what was it always your ambition to be a sports talk show host? Because
No.
you're a natural at it, and part two of that is, did you have any uh, people you looked up to that you wanted to emulate?
Well, let me back up and tell you kind of what ended up happening with coaching and how I got into radio. Uh, 1985, I'm coaching baseball at Southwestern with a great coach, Jerry Bartow. We won the conference title. We set all kinds of school records, and I get a job at Texas Tech as a recruiting coordinator and assistant baseball coach. I go down, I accept the job, and at that time, my wife and I were expecting our second child. And so I go down to Lubbock, and she stays back here with my oldest daughter, waiting for the second one to come along. And everything goes well. I come home on Halloween, and I'm home because we're done with fall ball, and the baby comes a little bit late. It comes on December 2nd, so I end up staying for Christmas. And then I go back in the spring in '86. And the year before I got there in '85, they set the school record for losses. And they also lost a bunch of players because they didn't take care of their business in the classroom. So they bring me in. And so in '86, we set the school record for wins. The first year I'm there, we set the school record for wins. Not only that, we had the second highest GPA of all the male sports teams. The only team that beat us out was the tennis team.
That's
Okay.
important.
And I was in charge of study hall. Okay. And if the guys missed study hall, they got an opportunity to visit with me, and it wasn't always that kind. Okay. So, anyways, we have this great year. We set the school record in my only year there. Okay. So then I'm getting ready to go manage a ball club in the Jayhawk League in Iowa, the Red Oak, Iowa Red Sox. I'd been there in '85 in the summer and was the pitching coach. We won the state title. They hired me as the manager. And so I'm getting ready to leave for Iowa. The head coach walks in and goes, "Hey, shut the door." I shut the door. He goes, "I just got fired." I go, "You got to be kidding me. We just set the school record for wins. You got fired." So here I am, about 28, going on 29. I got a wife, two kids. What am I going to do? Here's a guy from California down in Lubbock, Texas, did a good job. Everybody's happy with what I did. But now I don't know if I'm going to have a job or not, Joe. And so I
Sure.
go to the athletic director, a guy by the name of T. Jones who'd come from Texas. And he was the guy that fired the head coach. And I go, "Mr. Jones," I go, "I need to kind of find out where I'm at here." He goes, "John, well, we're going to hire the new head coach." And I wanted to be the head coach, but I was a new guy from California. I'd only been there 1 year, and they didn't really feel comfortable, I don't think, with that. And I was young. I was only, 28 going on 29. And so anyways, after Larry Hayes gets hired from Lubbock Christian, who ended up coaching there for many years and did an incredible job, Larry rehired me. But I wasn't making a lot of money, Joe. And my wife was working as a dental assistant, and I needed to make more money. So I go to the athletic director and I go, "Mr. Jones," I go, "Coach Hayes has rehired me, but, things have changed. My living arrangement since Coach Astry's been let go. And there were some things that changed in my original deal." So he promised me that he was going to give me more money. And so then I wait about 6 weeks and I go back to Mr. Jones. I go, "Mr. Jones, I just wanted to check and see how we're doing on, helping me out here on what we talked about." He goes, "John, I'm really sorry, but we're not going to be able to do that now. We had to put new lights in the stadium, Jones Stadium, where they play their football games." So I call my wife and I say, "Hey, we're going back to California." I called her from school. I go, "I'm resigning tomorrow. We're going back." So I come back. Now, this is a great story, Joe. And a lot of people don't know this story. I come back. I have no idea what I'm going to do. It's in February. Okay. We're getting towards the end of February. I'm coming back. Team's already in spring training. I come back. I was going to teach school. I was basically going to be a substitute teacher. So I come back, and my wife's with me, our two girls that are 7 and 1 at the time. We're living with my mom and dad because our house was still being rented. My niece was living in the house with some girlfriends. And so I'm working down at my uncle's house, sanding walls, doing construction work, trying to pick up, a few dollars here and there. And I went out to Torrey Pines High School. And Frank Chambliss, God rest his soul, Chris Chambliss is one of his older brothers, said, hey, why don't you come up to Carlsbad High School tomorrow? We're scrimmaging. So I go, okay, Frank, I'll come up there. About the third inning, Joe, he walks over to me, and I'm standing in between home plate and the third base dugout. And he goes, hey, do you want to coach this spring? I go, yeah, I'd like to, but I can't come out here for, $500 or $600 to be an assistant high school baseball coach. And he goes, well, this guy wants to talk to you. And I go, who's that? He goes, a guy named John Lynch. I go, what's he do? He goes, he owns 17 radio stations. I go, give me his number. So I had interviewed for a job with the New York Yankees up in Los Angeles. A friend of mine was with the Yankees, took me up there, but everybody already had jobs. Everybody's going to spring training, so there was nothing available. So I call Mr. Lynch. I go over to his house on a Sunday. I threw a nice suit on, and I go over and visit with him. He goes, hey, come down to the station on Wednesday. So I go down to the station, Joe, and I got to tell you, I'm all excited. I don't know where this is going to lead. But I go down there, I go to the front desk, I tell the receptionist, I go, hey, John Kentera here to see Mr. Lynch. She gets this weird look on her face. She goes, well, go sit over there. So I go sit over there. This is the old station down on Pacific Highway, right across the street from the Highway Patrol. And I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting, and all of a sudden this lady shows up, goes, Mr. Kentera? I go, yeah. He goes, I go, yeah, I came to see Mr. Lynch. He goes, well, Mr. Lynch had to go to New York last night on an emergency trip. He'll be back tomorrow. So I come home, and I tell my wife, she goes, how did it go? I go, it didn't go anywhere. She goes, well, what do you mean? I go, I showed up, and he had to go to New York. I got to go tomorrow. So then I go back the next day. And now I didn't know that he's got this kid that plays at Torrey Pines. I have no idea. I've been gone for 2 years, and they actually lived in Solana Beach. So anyways, and when I had the initial meeting, he never talked to me about his son. So anyways, we go to his office, and he starts talking, what are you looking for? Blah, 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 blah. I go, hey, I'm just looking for a job, and I'd like to coach. They'd like me to coach. He goes, okay, here's the deal. He goes, you're going to work here. I don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to work here, and you're going to coach baseball at Torrey Pines. Okay, great. So anyways, he goes, I'll see you in a month. So he gave me a check. He paid me he wrote a check out and handed me the check. And I got to tell you, Joe, that money he gave me was huge because I hadn't gotten a paycheck in a couple of months because I'd left Texas Tech. And I was making, $20 here, $30 here, doing odd jobs and all that. So anyways, I go up and start coaching at Torrey Pines. Now I find out he's got this kid that's a sophomore, pretty good a ball player. And so anyways, make a long story short, I went back a month later. I worked in the promotions department. Then I worked in the traffic division. And for people that don't know what traffic is, it's where they, bring all the salesmen, bring all the information to the ladies, and they get the commercials ready and programmed. And I programmed all the national commercials on 690 Extra Gold. And then how I got on the air, you're going to love this, Joe, because you love old-time radio.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, 690 Extra Gold, their morning show was Irv Harrigan and Paul Bloom and Harrigan. Okay, the oldie station. So Mr. Lynch goes to Irv Harrigan, who, by the way, he passed away a few years back. Irv was unbelievable. He goes to Irv and says, hey, there's this guy that I hired. He knows a lot about sports. This is in 87 now, okay? And he goes, I want you to get him on the air and get his feet wet. Okay, I didn't know this was going on behind the scenes. So what it turned out to be, in 87, I would go on with Irv and Paul every Friday morning during football season, and I'd talk about, the top football game, El Cap's playing, Santana, and Torrey Pines is playing San Diego, and, I'd jump around the county, and I would do a segment. Then we had the Chargers under contract at that time. And Irv and Paul were doing a thing called the Tailgate Talk Show from 10 to 11. So they gave me an assignment. You'll love this because you're a baseball fan. So they give me this assignment. Okay, John, every week you're going to go out and you're going to interview a high school coach and a high school player. So I figured, you know what? I got my little tape recorder. And I'm going to go and I'm going to make this easy on myself. I'm going to go interview somebody that I know. So at that time, Rancho Buena Vista was a powerhouse. They had just gotten started. They were a powerhouse. And I knew Craig Bell, the head football coach, because he'd been at San Diego. And I had coached girls softball as JV when I was in college. So I knew him really well. And so I go out to Rancho Buena Vista. I interview Coach Bell, and I had to interview a player. He goes, well, come on, we're going to walk. We walked over to the gym. We went over to this little room on the side, and he gives me this little sophomore quarterback to interview. So I go in the room and I interview this little sophomore quarterback who was really pretty good for, young kids are normally, you stick a mic in front of them, they're kind of shutter shy. Well, this sophomore quarterback happens to be Dave Roberts, who's now the Dodger manager. That's the first high school athlete I ever interviewed was Dave Roberts.
Wow. That I never knew that story. There's that I know he was going to come to your get together, your holiday get together.
Yeah, he didn't make it this year, but he made it a year ago. He actually a year ago drove straight from Dodger Stadium on that Friday afternoon and met with Ohtani and his representatives. He didn't even stop at home. He came straight from Dodger Stadium to the Leucadian for the holiday happy hour that you've got to come to this year.
Yeah, I know. I know
it's a drive from East County, but I'm going to tell you what, it's worth it.
I would do it. I would absolutely do it.
Well, AJ Preller, anytime AJ can make it, I mean, he can make it. We had Rick Sutcliffe there this year. You'd be surprised. But Freddie Lynn, the great Boston Red Sox, he's been there. Rod Laver has been there. I mean, you'd be surprised who you might run into.
Is Lynn living in San Diego?
Yeah, he lives out in La Costa area.
Huh. I didn't know
that.
He's
lived there for 100 years.
He had a cup of coffee with the Padres.
Yeah, good. Freddie Lynn's a great guy.
86, 87? No, maybe later than that.
His dad actually worked for my dad.
Oh.
As a bartender at the Cardiff office up in Cardiff.
I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a two-part question. As a radio host, what is the most challenging and what is the most rewarding part of being a talk show host?
The most challenging, because I put a lot of pressure on myself, Joe, is to be as properly prepared every day as I possibly can. And I think most people that have worked with me, I think my family, they would tell you that I badly over prepare for every show. Okay, that's number one. I always did my shows, Joe, not for me. I did them because I got a lot of people out there that trust me, and the listeners that I've gained over the years. And you're not going to make everybody happy. There's times where you got to be opinionated, but more than anything else, the thing that I feel worse about getting taken off the air. I mean, I battled back and I'm fine. I'm going to live a great life since I was taken off at the other station a little over a year ago. But I felt really bad for the listeners because the listeners trust me. And I also work my tail off to get them good information. And, I think, and I'm not going to bash anybody in particular, but I will tell you this, how the business has changed from our perspective. I think of Lee Hamilton, I think of Bill Werndell, I think of Steve Hartman, Chet Forty, myself, Mason. Scott Kaplan, Billy Ray, all those guys. This job can be so consuming, and we allowed it. Some of us more than others allowed it to be overly consuming. We couldn't rest. I mean, we were always grinding. I mean, for if I was on the air for 4 hours, I was probably working 6 hours ahead of time before ever getting on the air. And you got to remember, when we started, we didn't have the internet. We went to practice. We got on the phone and talked to people. A lot of people now, they don't have the life experiences. I mean, they're sitting behind a microphone, they're reading the paper, they're reading the internet, but they don't have any interaction with players or managers or coaches. And, I've told some of the younger guys that were kind of coming in when I was on my way out, I go, I really feel bad for you because you're not going to have the one-on-one relationships that I had with players or with managers or coaches because it's just not allowed. I mean, think about this, Joe. In 1994, the Chargers are holding training camp at UCSD. I love telling this story because I made friends because of it. 1994 was my first year where I was covering the Chargers morning, noon, and night. I was out at UCSD at 8:30 for their 9:15 practice. I'd eat lunch with them. I mean, I'd eat lunch with Rodney Harrison or whoever I walked with from the practice field. And then I'd go sit in my car and wait for practice to start at 3:15. But at 2:45, guys like John Carney, David Benn, who was a rookie that year, Gail Gilbert, who was the backup quarterback, Brian Wagner, who was a punter on that Super Bowl team, they would come out early.
Mhm.
And I had nothing better to do other than sit in my car and wait for practice. So I would go down on the practice field and I'd go behind the goalpost, and John Carney would be whacking balls through the goalpost. And here's this radio guy behind the goalpost catching the football and throwing it back to David Benn. I got news for you. No team in America would allow a radio guy to be on the field doing that nowadays. But that's how I got to know David Benn and John Carney and those guys. And, Tony Gwynn, going to the ballpark early, sitting with Tony in front of his locker, or Trevor Hoffman, or going in with Kevin Towers and Bruce Bochy or Buddy Black. I mean, that's how I got to know those guys, because I just didn't sit in a studio. I went out there and worked my tail off.
Yeah, you gain their trust and their respect, because you were very respectful of everyone, and that's how you get AJ Preller at your holiday party. It's testament to yourself, for sure.
Well, Joe, I think, one of the things I've always, a couple of things about the radio. I never just wanted to be a voice in a box. I wanted the community to know who the heck John Kentera was. And that's why, I miss parts of the radio business, uh, but I really miss, going out and doing, community stuff. We got the fires up in L.A., but we had fires here in San Diego. We did a lot of things. I love going to out to Grossmont Center every year for the Holiday Bowl blood drive, or the old Charger blood drive, or the Padre blood drive. I love being out in the community, and that's probably what I miss. But I'm still doing some stuff. I'm doing UCSD basketball. I'll do the Strike Force again in the spring, and I'm out and about, and people run into me from time to time. But my greatest pleasure was just trying to bring a good quality product day in and day out to our listening audience, regardless of how you feel. When that red light goes on, Joe, you got to be ready to roll.
Yep, I got you. So I wanted to give your new show a little shout out. You have a new podcast, right, on YouTube?
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's going pretty good. I didn't really have any expectations. I didn't really expect to be the next Joe Rogan and or Joe Nelson, and make a bunch of money on sponsorships. Hopefully, we'll make get out and start working on that. But we started last May. I would like to have started right on before opening day, but I want to do it right, and it's growing. And we'll see where it goes. I think a lot of people will really enjoy listening to me during Padres season. But, we try to touch on a lot of different things. We still like to give the high school kids a little bit of love, because that's kind of how I got into this business, was doing that high school show back in 1990. So, we try to touch on a little bit of everything. We're doing it 2 to 3 times a week. Right now, we're going to do it Monday and Friday. And then once we get into baseball, we'll crank it up probably at least another day, if not more. But I'm having fun with it, and it still allows me to have a connection with the people that miss having me on every day for 4 hours.
Count me as one of those people.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on the Padres just a little bit, because they've been really quiet in free agency, and
Yeah.
in fact, they lost Donovan Solano. They did sign Luis Patino to a minor league contract, and they're trying to trade Arise. I mean, I don't understand. It seems very very quiet.
Well, I think well, there's several things we could talk about, and obviously this infighting with Shiel Seidler and the two of the Seidler brothers. I don't know where that's going to go, and to me, it seems like it ought to be pretty cut and dry. I mean, you look at Peter Seidler's trust, and you kind of follow that, and then what if it hadn't been followed correctly, then you got a problem. So we'll see where that goes. But nonetheless, uh, I think, and I had a really good talk with AJ at the Christmas party, and we didn't get into, obviously this hadn't come down, and we didn't get into talking about free agents, but we did talk about, Bogarts. And I told him what I said is I think Bogarts can play shortstop for me. But I thought Bogarts needs to drop some pounds, and I think he'll be a little bit quicker. I think he'll be a little bit more effective. And then I read in the paper the other day that he's played as much as 220 pounds. Well, I think that is a little bit too heavy to play shortstop as you're getting into your 30s. And we all know as we get into our 30s and 40s, and it's a little bit tougher to keep that weight off. And that, boy, that's a constant battle for me, and it has been for many years. But with that being said, you got to wonder if everything that's been going on behind the scenes, obviously AJ and people knew what was going on, and you got to believe that this has hindered him in putting this ball club together. And we don't have a left fielder right now. We don't have a starting catcher unless you want to bring back Luis Camposano. We need at least one, if not two, starting pitchers. And then you mentioned Donovan Solano. Not that they necessarily bring him back, but we got to build a bench. And I got to tell you this, AJ. People either really like AJ or they think he's been here too long. I personally, as a human, I like AJ Preller a great deal. Now, he's like any general manager. He's had his swings and misses. But if you go back to last year, the 2024 season, the guy hit on everything. There wasn't one thing that blew up in his face. I mean, he made that deal to get a rise from Miami, and he got Miami to pay the contract.
Oh, I know. That was
a
coup.
And then he and people will argue with me on this, but they're going to be wrong. He won the Juan Soto deal. You know why? Because we knew we couldn't re-sign Juan Soto. We get at least 2 years out of Michael King. We got a great year out of Kyle Higashioka. He parlayed that into a nice 2-year deal with the Texas Rangers. Randy Vasquez helped the ball club last year. Johnny Brito at times helped the ball club. Overall numbers weren't great for Vasquez or Brito, but they ate some innings. And then they took Drew Thorpe, who was kind of a big guy in that deal, who'd never pitched higher than Double-A. They sent him to the White Sox and got Dylan Cease. That was brilliant. And, at the end of the day, he signed David Peralta. He signed Donovan Solano. And then, I mean, let's face it, nobody in the world ever knew that Jackson Merrill would do even remotely close to what he did. I mean, and again, there's going to be some pressure on him this year. But at the end of the day, man, I got to tell you what, AJ Preller, and I told him at the Christmas party, he should have been the executive of the year in Major League Baseball. He hit on everything last year.
I agree with you. And to your point on an award at the end of the year, I want to know your thoughts on this because you did bring up Jackson Merrill. I think I know this, I can be a homer for sounding like this, but I think he got screwed out of the Rookie of the Year. And I only say that because pitchers, they have the Cy Young, and everyday players should have the Rookie of the Year. I know that sounds jaded. What is your thought on that?
Well, a couple of, number one, Jackson Merrill, I guess I always side with the position guy because he's doing it day in and day out.
Yeah.
But you got to look at Paul Skeens. I mean, Paul Skeens started the year in the minor leagues, and he came up and made such an impression. He started for the National League in the All-Star game, and his numbers were like historical. Not only was he up for Rookie of the Year, and he ended up winning it, but he was also up for the Cy Young. And, I would like to see, and, these awards some of these awards are a little bit archaic. Okay. I mean, 50 years ago, yeah, maybe you just want to have one Rookie of the Year, but now everything has become so specialized. To me, it seems like you should have an everyday Rookie of the Year and a pitcher Rookie of the Year. But, I would have gone with Merrill because Merrill put up some incredible numbers. Not only that, offensively, here's a guy that had never played maybe the outfield since Little League.
Yeah, that was my next point.
Left field. He spent 2 days in left field. They go, hey, you know what? We don't really have a center field. Why don't you give center field a try? And he played like a Gold Glove guy. I mean, the guy was amazing. I mean,
and he just looked so natural.
I mean, the guy played 46 games of Double-A baseball.
Yeah.
And, he had shown some power, but not the power we saw a year ago. And now, everybody's going to say, well, is he going to have the sophomore jinx? I don't think so. I'm going to tell you why. This guy's a high character guy, high IQ baseball guy, a guy that has a burning desire to be a star. I think he'll have a fantastic year. And the big thing players can't do, Joe, they can't look at last year's stats and say, I'm going to do better. You just got to go out and play and let those stats accumulate the way they're
Yep.
going to accumulate. You can't put a number. I'm going to hit 30 home runs this year. All of a sudden, you're in the middle of June and you got 12 homers, and you're starting to lean and try to lift the ball more and get out of your approach. And just go out and be Jackson Merrill. Don't try to do anything more or anything. Just go out and play and let those numbers take care of themselves.
Well, there was a player many years ago that I felt was really exciting, just electric. And I know that there was that void while watching the Padres that I had. And I think Merrill has way surpassed that. And that was Eric Owens. I loved watching him play. And now that Jackson Merrill is here, it's got that back, it's back, and it's just so exciting. And he looks like he's just having a ball.
Well, you mentioned Eric Owens. Eric Owens was a journeyman baseball player, and he came to the Padres, and the Padres gave him an opportunity to play, and he produced. And I'm sure you probably still have your Eric Owens dirty T-shirt.
Absolutely.
I mean, how brilliant, seriously, how brilliant were Larry Lucchino and Charles Steinberg? On a Saturday night, they had over 54 or 55,000 people show up at Qualcomm Stadium for Eric Owens' dirty T-shirt night. Unbelievable.
Yep, those are a couple names. There's a few more, but without them, there wouldn't be any downtown ballpark. It's who knows where we'd be. But yeah, Larry Lucchino.
I don't even want to think about where we'd be.
No. I remember I went to a focus group while they were talking about getting a new ballpark downtown, and I was one of like 20 selected. So there was the ownership group there. There was Trevor Hoffman and Brad Osmus, and like, wow, and they're asking questions. And they're like, well, we're going to take this Western Metal Supply building and it's going to be in play. And they're like, well, what should we call it? And dumb me, I'm like, well, how about the sweet spot? And I thought that was pretty brilliant. So ever since I saw Larry Lucchino a couple times after that, and I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you're the sweet spot guy. And that was pretty funny.
Yeah, Larry's a good man. I'm very saddened to hear of his passing this past year.
So I think the last thing that I want to talk about here is Roki Sasaki. And I think it's interesting because in the last couple of days, they announced that he's not going to the Giants, he's not going to the Yankees, and that leaves three teams, LA, San Diego, and big shocker, the Blue Jays. Where have we heard this one before?
We haven't heard that he's on a plane to Toronto. Maybe that'll come later this week. Apparently he was in Toronto, though, at some point. It sounded like he was in Toronto before he came back and spent time in San Diego over the weekend. And now today, which was Tuesday, apparently he's meeting with the Dodgers for a second time today. And I guess they're bringing out their heavy artillery of Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, among others. So, I would imagine, between the 15th and 23rd, maybe sooner. Well, we'll see. Maybe we're going to get some good news here, but it's going to be very interesting on what direction he wants to go. If he wants to go to the defending World Series champs, he'll have that opportunity. If he wants to come here and make his own way and be a part of something hopefully really, really special that'll get you and I jumping up and down and getting that parade that we've been talking about for years on Harbor Drive.
Yes.
Maybe he'll sign with the Padres. I can't imagine him going to Toronto. I think it's a two-horse race right now.
Yeah, I wonder if there's such a thing as too much talent up there in LA. And, you got megastar A and megastar B. And, could they coexist up there? And because from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Sasaki kind of wants to go his own path and doesn't necessarily, he doesn't care if there's another Asian on a team. He just wants to make sure that he's trained right. He's on the right direction. So that does leave the Padres as a bit of an open door there.
Well, I think the Padres have shown Ruben Niebel's a damn good pitching coach. I think Mark Pryor does a heck of a job up there with the Dodgers. There's no question about that. Mark Pryor, of course, from University High School now / Cathedral Catholic High School, and when he went with Dave Roberts up to the Dodgers, he was working in the Padre organization. So you know what's interesting about the Dodgers, and I know people they get tired of hearing about the Dodgers, but their manager, Dave Roberts from Rancho Buena Vista, Mark Pryor, their pitching coach from University High here in San Diego. And I don't know what title he has now. He used to be the bench coach, but he has some other newfangled title. Bob Guerin, who was the 1979 CI Baseball Player of the Year for Ernie Beck at Claremont High School. I mean, three guys that have significant roles with the Dodgers, all hail from San Diego. Pretty interesting.
Bob Guerin. Hadn't heard that name in a minute.
Yeah, Bob Guerin. The first game I ever coached in high school, it was a scrimmage at Torrey Pines against Ernie Beck and the Claremont Chieftains. Bob Guerin was a catcher for them that day, and he went on and became the CIF Player of the Year that year.
Huh. You hear that name about as much as you hear Doug Gwosdz.
Eye chart?
Yes, eye chart. Good one. Well, Coach, is there anything else? We promoted your podcast there. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? Anything you want to promote? Anything you'd like to say?
Only thing I would say is it would be a big thank you to people like you, people in the radio TV industry, and a thank you to all the people that listen to me forever and ever. I was hoping my career on radio would end on my own terms. It didn't. I'm still not really sure why, but with that being said, I just a big thank you to everybody. The support that I got last year when this came down was unbelievable. It was overwhelming. It was humbling. And, Joe, you and all the radio TV people were so kind and so supportive, as were all my fans. And just, I love everyone. And thanks for, being so loyal to me over the years. And hopefully you'll tune into the podcast. And we're looking forward to a big Padre year. But I love the people. I mean, that's the thing I miss the most is that daily connection.
Yeah.
Talking with people on the radio.
I get it. I totally understand that. And you're a blessing to this town, and you are beloved in this town. I want you to know that.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. Great deal. And thanks so much for having me on. And last time you and I did it, I was running around in between chickens and different farm animals out at your place.
Still got chickens, and they are just as confused by this weather as everyone else because normally they shut down. They don't produce eggs this time of year. But guess what? We're still getting a couple a day.
Oh, that's good.
That's wonderful because those are a hot commodity right now, those eggs.
Yeah, they are. But no, thanks again to you and everyone for being so loyal to the coach for so many years.
Absolutely. And hopefully this year we will see you at our radio reunion we have in
I'm planning on it. I was going to be at the last one, but I'm doing UCSD basketball, and I didn't realize I was so disappointed. I had it on the calendar, and my wife got tired of me complaining. I was kind of complaining about how I couldn't go, but I had to call a basketball game.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, you're usually always there, but we try to plan it. It's tough when you got all these teams playing San Diego State, and it's tough, but we do our best and definitely hope to see you this year. But other than that, again, thank you for taking the time. You can go ahead and go about your merry way, and we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks a lot, Coach.
All right, Joe. Thanks so much. Take care.
All right, you too, buddy. So that's the coach, John Kentera. Absolutely one of my favorite people in radio right there. Love the coach. Just a couple more things I wanted to say is Amy and I are thinking about everybody up there in Los Angeles. Stay strong. This is a really rough time, and we're sending all the love, and hopefully this will come to an end much sooner rather than later. So for the next couple weeks, I have a couple guests. So next week we have Mark Christopher Lawrence. You have seen him on just about everything. This is a clip here this is a still from My Name is Earl. He's been in like 67 episodes of the TV show Chuck. He's been in TV, movies, just he's also a stand-up comedian. He's a very nice guy. Looking forward to that next Tuesday. The Tuesday after that, Amy and I watch YouTube every Sunday night, and this guy has a YouTube show, and it's Disney Jeopardy. Brian Perry is his name. He will be on next Tuesday, next Tuesday, excuse me. And it's a really clean show. It's a lot of fun. It's a great format and pretty funny guy. We watch this every Sunday night. He just did his 100th episode, and he says he's going to keep going. And if you want to watch his show, it's Inside the Magic on YouTube. And that's it for January. That will wrap up January. And I did mention this last week. I do have a new show in the podcast family. It is Mary England with the La Mesa Chamber of Commerce. It will be the Mary England show, and she will talk about all things La Mesa, all things La Mesa Chamber of Commerce. She will go to restaurants. She will have food right there in front of the camera. She'll talk to the owners. That one will be fun, and more information as that one comes available. So other than that, I'm going to shut it down. Thank you again for watching and all of your support. Please click that subscribe button. Please share if you could. This is going to be a really fun show. We're just going to keep going. A lot of great guests. All right, everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.